welcome to another episode of the Zero Generation Podcast, where we talk to the dreamers who left home. My name is Damilola Onwa, and I'm your host, as usual. Today, I have a guest, a very special guest in the studio with me, who actually owns the studio that we're in now and has been pivotal to getting the Zero Generation Podcast off of the ground. We're going to be talking about her journey as an entrepreneur, and her journey immigrating to the U.S., sort of. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ona and have her introduce herself. Drum rolls.
Boop, 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 boop. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I think this is like the first show that I produced that I'm actually on.
Oh, yay.
I'm over here like, ooh, maybe we should make this a thing.
You should.
But no, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Ona Oghogho. I am the founder, creative director, producer here at Adode Media. We are a full-service creative agency that specializes in podcast production, branding, and design, as well as social media marketing. And I know that was a mouthful, and this is also my studio, so I'm super excited to be talking about entrepreneurship with you.
Yes, you literally are like the perfect guest to talk about this from a demographic perspective, experience perspective, and just, general vibes, like the best vibes. So, I've really enjoyed partnering with you to get this off the ground. I remember our first conversation when this was a little teeny weeny idea and a doc, because I'm a nerd and I wrote a doc. I wrote an Amazon type doc for my podcast. Like, would you like to see the doc?
It was a dossier. We cannot call that a doc. That was a dossier. I said, baby, do you even need me?
I did. I for sure did. So you have this great experience of being a millennial. You are Nigerian, of Nigerian heritage. You are American as well, and you're living your life, in this dual space. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
But let's take it to the beginning, right? How did you move here? Were you born here? Did you move?
Okay,
young,
so
older.
Back when I was a fetus. But no, so honestly, my story, I think, is probably similar to certain people, in that my parents actually met in the U.S. and then they moved back home to Nigeria. My mom was pregnant and came to the States specifically to have me. Let's just call a spade a spade. Had me here, then moved back home to Nigeria. And I was raised back home until I was about 9. So I think after she had me, she stayed for about 3 months and took me back home. And then my mom ended up, my parents moved to the States, and that's how I ended up here at 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And so it is, to say, a cultural shock as a 9-year-old who, I think I moved here and I was bald. Like, I didn't have any hair, and we moved to a very small town. And so it was very different because I was only the black person in school and had a accent.
Where did you move? What city?
Xenia, Ohio.
Xenia. I don't even.
You could walk from one side to the other back then, and the Walmart and the YMCA was on and popping. That used to be the thing.
That tells you all you need to know.
All you need to know.
The Walmart and the
YMCA
were popping.
They used to have good little jams at the YMCA. Girl, don't sleep on the YMCA. Now hold on.
I love it. And so you were born here, and then you moved back when you were not even cognitively here with us, and then you moved back to the U.S. when you were 9. And I'm like trying to think about when I was 9. Like, I was
what were you doing?
Finishing up primary school and moving to secondary school in Nigeria. So I got into the 7th grade when I was 9 because Nigeria were just like super fast.
Advanced.
Yeah.
Advanced.
But I can imagine like that would be, depending on the school that you went, that would be the year where you would have like, you'd be on a low cut. So you came to the U.S. bald. Now, we know that there's, this experience of people who move from Nigeria or from Africa to the U.S. when they're in those years, right? And there's a lot of bullying. There's a lot of, because kids are aggressively not nice. Sometimes name calling, and just because these kids like have these expectations of people who come from Africa, and they kind of put that on the child. So what was your experience of that?
I I can honestly say throughout my life, I've never been bullied. So
what? Okay. So why? How come?
For starters, for those who cannot tell, I am a very tall woman. I am 5'10", and I've been tall my whole life. Along with that, I have a very big personality. You know, I'm the youngest of 5 girls, but everybody will say I have older sisters energy. Along with this, I took karate, and I don't know if they do it anymore. I've actually always wondered that, because back then everybody had like it was taekwondo, karate, all these things that you literally stopped in the middle of your day in school to do. So this is what happened in Nigeria at the time.
Right.
And I never, to this day, have never forgotten that my teacher always said, you know, assert dominance quickly. Like in any situation when you get on the mat, you assert dominance quickly.
Yeah, I love
so that this way you can take out your opponent. Well, coming into a new space, you know, America is drastically different, you know, and then to be the only Black person in a whole town, not just my school, in a whole town.
Yeah.
There was nobody else that looked like you. And to go from Nigeria to now, and I remember being like, you know, you turn a lot of colors. Like, I remember I said that to somebody. I was like, and it was winter time, and like, I think she came in, her nose was red. I was just like, are you sick? You know, like, it's all these things. And so I think I realized very quickly that I was an other, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody was blonde hair and pigtails, and I was bald. And I remember being like, oh, there's an issue here.
Yeah.
And I realized that I had to assert dominance quickly because I could see the bullying, you know?
Yeah.
It started, I think, you know, we had one situation and I was like, oh, we're not going to do that. And I think, you know, used my little karate move and was just like,
right.
Quickly.
I love that. I so love that. Like, a couple of things. One is that life lesson that your karate teacher was just telling you what to do on the mat, but it translated into something you could draw on in real life. Mm-hmm. And then you also used your karate skills. And this is something that I went to schools in Ibadan, Nigeria, where we were very focused on academics. Mm-hmm. And I think we did have sports, like there was inter-house sports and all. But if you weren't like the super athletic person who was like really good, then please just face your book. So that's one thing. I'm like, maybe if I grew up in another country, I would be more athletic, or I would have some of these life skills that they could come in other ways, but sports is such a great way of instilling that in children. So I love that you were just like, no, this is not happening. One, I can fight. Two, like, I'm a little like culturally intelligent because I've done, you know, this sport. Love it. So you dominated those kids with your height and your wits. How did you then end up as doing what you're doing now as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, girl.
Is this a path that did you always want to do this? Did your parents have dreams for you is this what they envisioned? You know, talk to me. And then you also maybe being the last born, I agree. She has big sister energy, and this is coming from someone who is a big sister in my family and in my extended family. I'm the first grandchild, so I recognize game. How did you turn out like this and choose this life path?
Oh God, Lord, that. Okay, let me tell it to condense. I want to take over the show.
Yes.
So first and foremost, I worked in healthcare for about 10 years. But in college, I went to school for communications. Right. So I worked at my school radio station. I worked at my school TV station, newspaper. Like, I loved that world. I had an internship in college, and they had given me a job offer, all these things. And literally maybe 2 weeks before graduation, they lost the funding that supported the department. Right. So literally everybody got laid off, and my offer got rescinded. And I remember being devastated because throughout college, I like lived on my own. Like, I had my own apartment, and I think
because you were working.
Yeah, like I had my own money. Like, I was very adamant of, I have left these people. I'm not coming back. And so it was very devastating. And I remember like I had to take an in-between job. I moved in with my parents for a little bit, and I ended up, like, my mom is honestly who got me my job. You know, she was doing a home loan for a Nigerian woman, the Nigerian connection.
Yeah.
For a Nigerian woman. And she was like, look, my daughter's really looking for a job. And she was a director in healthcare. And that's how I ended up in healthcare. I didn't have this, like, burning desire. It wasn't one of those things where it's like it wasn't that. And I started off in the financial, like, revenue cycle department. And before I was 26, I was in management. And so I've always I had dreams of ascending the corporate ladder, but I don't think I wanted to be a lawyer. Then I changed my mind. So I didn't know if I knew what avenue was going to be in.
Yeah.
But I was enjoying communications, that I thought I would probably work at like a Cox or something of that nature in communications.
Yeah.
So it being in revenue, me who didn't do good in math,
Yeah.
is where I ended up at, was a very shocker to me. But I did so well. I was managing a huge team, all these things, and just ascending the corporate ladder. Left that organization, ended up at another organization that after a year of being there, they laid off 400 people.
Right.
At this point, it's been some time in healthcare, and I was like, you know what? I need to figure out what's next, because clearly healthcare, these layoffs, just all these things happening just feels unstable.
I love that you saw it coming, because that's that's kind of a similar experience where like you had this foresight of, okay, this is not an issue now, but it's brewing down the line. So what year are you in your career now? Because you said you did this for 10 years.
This is 2019, and this is honestly how I got into this space.
Right.
I honestly started my own podcast because I wanted to talk to women who had left corporate America. I genuinely was just looking to kind of glean from their experiences to figure out what was next for myself. I never thought I would fall in love with actually the podcast and the creating of the content.
The business side.
I just fell in love with it. So from being laid off and trying to, like, you know, they gave me a good severance package, and I said, okay, I was going to take a year from working.
Yeah.
In that year, I fell in love with the craft, and it's been up since then.
That's amazing. That is truly, you know, so because this was 2019, the year before the lost years of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I really feel like I'll speak for myself though, who I was in 2019 and who I was by 2022, like just night and day. I miss that, who she used to be. What was it like running your business or starting your business during that period?
I think Atlanta is just so different. So it's very important to note that I am in Atlanta. I started this business in Atlanta. Atlanta is different in that we didn't close. Yeah. You know, we were probably closed for all of a week, I think. Like there was a solid week maybe. And even then, I don't know if it was real. Like, so it's not until I go to other cities that I learned that like people were really not allowed out the house. Yeah. So that wasn't our experience. Like clubs were open, like things were still open. Okay. So starting my business around that time, I didn't really feel those effects in that same way. Along with that, you know, money was flowing for people. You know, like all of a sudden people who didn't have checks had checks, you know, people were able to work multiple jobs from home. So I do think like businesses who started around that time, I do think some people probably struggled to sustain because you may have, you know, a little unrealistic around that time period. Yeah. But it did give me an opportunity to just meet new people. And in 2020, I actually went back and got a job because I recognized that, oh, wait, I have something on my hands that I really want to invest in, and I need money from this job to invest in that. So I actually went back to work in healthcare for a year.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know this because we've talked about this a little bit, and this is the part that I didn't know. But, you know, I think it's really interesting that you decided, right, after starting, you were like, I need to sustain this financially. I want to give this a real shot. And so I'm going to go back and get a job so that I don't, almost like, because I'm thinking about it through like my own journey, right? Last fall, I said goodbye to tech. I don't know for how long that goodbye is going to last. It was more like maybe like a see you later, because I wanted to focus on my creative side, finishing my novel, you know, seeing what other things would spring up, one of which is this podcast. But, you know, definitely now at a point where I'm like, okay, so what is that balance of like money, steady, you know, having peace of mind and not like applying for grants or, you know, trying to figure out like, where am I going to get my next part-time? You know, did you feel like you were betraying your dream, or did you feel like you were sustaining your dream by going back? Did you have any emotions about going back to corporate?
Not at all. I'm also one of those people who I will do whatever it takes. Like, there's no job beneath me. There's no job that I'm like, oh, even like, what was that? When I left that job again, I took a little part-time job making $17 an hour at the hospital in a uniform, checking people in at the front desk, which is the role I used to manage.
Wow.
Because for me, it was like, okay, I'm in a good space to where I can leave, but I'm still going to keep this little job.
Yeah.
And I didn't leave that job. So I left corporate again in February 2021. I kept that job until July. And then I opened the studio in October of that year.
Right.
And so for me, I say all that to say, even today, if tomorrow I was like, you know what, this look a little tight. Let me tell you how quickly that little $17 an hour job, I will be right back there with my uniform saying, hello, welcome to.
Yeah.
Because that to me is what sustainability looks like.
Yeah.
It's willing to do the things and knowing that there's nothing that can stop me from my dreams but me.
Right.
So me going back to get a job, that job pays 6 figures, you know?
Yeah.
Wasn't about to stop anything, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but that's just the mindset I've always had, is that I'm going to do what needs to be done. And I was still running my business on the side. I didn't have the studio at the time. These days, I don't know how feasible that would be.
Yeah.
But I wanted to open a studio. And so because of that, I needed that check.
Right. So the goals were really clear, and you almost, it wasn't emotional for you because you were like, I need to do what I need to do to get this goal off the ground. And so whatever I have to do, I'm not making any statements about like my goal is my goal. I really like that. So I love that, you literally are like, there's no job beneath me. Imagine like going to take a $17 per hour job that you managed in the past because you're like, I need this and my goal is to open my studio. I love that. Are there aspects of your upbringing, right? Because both of your parents are Nigerian, very Nigerian, and you have a lot of like Nigerian family. So you're really still in touch with your roots. What parts of that, of your, makeup or your decision or your value system came from them versus for them, was it pressure? Like, please just go get a job. Like, we don't know what you're doing. Like, go and get stability.
So something to know is I've never been the kid you can pressure. I've never. I have never been the kid you can pressure. I'm definitely probably my parents' like difficult child, but it pays off. And I think I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. So I had cancer at 16 and then again at 17. So I also have this notion in life of like, 1, God did not see me through that for me to be mediocre.
Yeah.
2, my prayer time is nothing to play with. So if God has told me it's okay, I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
And so my parents, I know that probably has driven them crazy. They're thankful for it now. But in the same token, like I remember when I got laid off, I went for an interview because I was like, okay, let's just kind of see. And I hadn't decided what I wanted to do yet. And I got an offer that was probably the most money I've ever been offered. And I was like, no. I have enough money to where I can last for at least a year, and I want to see what I want to do.
Yeah.
I have other talents. I used to plan weddings, so I was doing event planning, all these things. And I was like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I Airbnb'd a room in my house. That paid my mortgage.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have any kids. It's just me.
Yeah.
And so I'm really of the mindset of I'm not going to let you pressure me. Even though my father is an entrepreneur, and he's very much so of the mindset of as long as you can take care of yourself, but be willing to bow out if you need to.
Yeah.
And that was his only
don't
thing.
Don't
suffer for the sake of suffering. Yeah. My mom, though, with my health history, she was really worried about like health insurance.
Health insurance. Yeah.
But pretty quickly out the gate, I got health insurance, and I think that kind of put her at ease.
Yeah.
And the fact that I never had need to ask them for money. So I think they were just kind of like, okay, she's clearly figuring it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so all of that ties into why it's just like, okay, let's just do it.
Yeah.
What could possibly go? Healthcare is not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. And like this, your skill set is your skill set. Your experience is your experience. You can always go back. I love that your parents are supportive. Of course, they're caring. They will lean in and be like, are you okay? And your dad will be like, if it's too much, just, no one is you don't need to be a hero for anyone, and it's very reminiscent of my parents as well, because they're very much, in fact, I remember when I called them, I had already quit, but it wasn't my last day. Like my boss was like, no, you can't, 2 weeks. We're not doing 2 weeks. You're going to give us 6 weeks. I was like, I'll make money for 6 weeks, please. Yes, let's go. So I think it was close to the end of the 6 weeks. I now got the courage to tell my parents, and they were so chilled, on the phone, and they were like, we've watched you. we've seen your life, we've seen how you've made your decisions, and we've seen God come through for you to back up your decisions. So we have full faith. And I was in tears. I was like, I thought they were going to be like, what's happening? What's, they worried, but they were so calm. And even up until now, that care shows up, right? They're leaning in to be like, what's happening? How are things going? How are things going? We're praying for you. But that overbearing sense of they truly believe that I can't fail. And that just really gives me wings to try out this, I don't even know what it is, creative entrepreneurship, writing career. You know what I mean? It gives me, just the courage to keep going. And so I love that, that. And I hope to be a parent like that, or an older sibling like that, because I have a much younger, brother who I might be like a type A mom. Yeah. So, okay, so what are some of the both the ups and the downs of running this? So now you're almost in this place where you've now hit your goal, right? You have this beautiful studio, it's amazing. You have it's now running and you're getting clients. What are some unique things that you're like, oh, okay, no, I didn't know that I would face this challenge, or I didn't know that this amazing client was gonna come, in year X of me running this, right? What are some of those surprises that whether good or bad?
Okay, I'm gonna start off with the good, because I always like to lead with the good. One, and I'm gonna give it in a few different ways. One is just the fact that my mom has come around. That is wild to me, and of course, I always believed in you. Who are you talking about? So that to me has been amazing. The fact that my mom has finally come around, that's a huge up for me.
Yeah.
I'm very close with my mother. I'm very close with my fathers too, but my dad is very much so an entrepreneur and a business-minded person, and to him it's all about the numbers. My mom is very much so feelings, and so her being able to not be worried, because for a while she was like, just get a job so I can sleep. I'm like, Jesus, right? Your whole sleep is on me.
Poor woman.
So that feels good. Another good has just been year one in business, we started working with XO Nicole, iHeart. We helped with the launch of Revolt Network, some of their podcasts, and that has just nothing but the grace of God and networking, because it wasn't like we were, a big brand or anything at the time. I think I'm big now, but at the time, I was still learning a lot of things, and just the fact that so many companies have trusted my leadership and my vision, that has been amazing to me. And I'll say one more. This is actually our third studio space. So my first one was actually in the hood, girl.
Was that because that was what you could afford?
It was actually more expensive than here.
Okay.
So it was actually more expensive. That location, though, was a month-to-month lease.
Right.
So I felt more comfortable with the first lease being, I said, okay, for a year, if I don't have any issues paying rent and everything else in between, then I'll feel comfortable signing a lease.
Yeah.
And so I went month to month because I just wanted to make sure, can I do this?
Yeah.
And so after a year, all you have to do is give them 30 days and they let us out. And then we moved to another location in Buckhead. And we actually grew out of that space. That space was only 900 and something square feet. And then we expanded to here, which is about 2,000 square feet. So that's the good. The challenges?
The challenges, yeah.
One being entrepreneurship will really be a mirror to you as a person. You will literally have to sit with yourself on a regular basis in ways that it's almost like how they talk about how marriage serves as that reflection for you.
Yes, it does.
Entrepreneurship is the same way, because if you you eat what you kill. Yeah. So if you don't show up as your best self, it's going to show, and your clients are going to feel that, and you're not going to have clients. Yeah. I have type A personality. I like for things to go a certain way, and running a business that is people focused. Yeah. I had to learn that, flexible. I have to release a little bit, because I'm very much so that is not the way. Yeah. And I have fired clients. I remember in the beginning, I was like, oh no, we're not doing that. And I had to realize girl, you can't keep firing everybody. Get it together. Yeah. That coupled with staffing. Right. It's funny because in corporate, I manage teams of 20, 30 people. Yeah. And, there's HR and there's all these other levels of structure, all these things. In your own business, until you get to a certain level, you are those things. Yeah. And I think I was not prepared for, like, I'm the training department, I'm HR,
Yeah.
I'm the counselor, I'm the, I'm expected to be a lot of hats that aren't really my strong suit, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm a certified project manager, process improvement person. I'm very technical.
Yeah.
And so human beings want the empathy part. They want the you to care. And I'm very much so like, okay, so like, what do we need to get done?
Yeah.
Like, you might tell me you get into a car accident and I'm like, oh, are you okay? And they're going to be like, yeah, girl, I'm good. And the moment you tell me you're good, I'm like, okay, so the things that we have on your plate to get done, can you send me that, like, when you get home? Yeah. Whereas most people are like, they want their boss to say, oh, just take the day. My brain doesn't go there.
Same. I'm the same way. And I think about this all the time. Like, how they say people are, marriage does this to you as well. Like, just makes you reflect. And you don't even need to. You just see yourself. And my husband might argue that he's task-oriented, but he's people-oriented. Or at least on the spectrum, I'm much more task-oriented than. And so I'm realizing, like, that you seem uncaring. Like, no, like, dial back and, like, lean into the people side. But my brain goes to, like, this is the list of things we need. And it's not that I don't care, because I do care, but it's like, this is the list of things that we need to do for my brain to, like, calm itself down.
And here's the thing. I think if it wasn't my business and my livelihood, I think I probably could care more, But it's like, my clients don't care that you got into a car accident, Like, I can't send an email and be like, so sorry, the reason that we do not have your episode for this week, or your content, or your social media stuff, or your website can't go live for your brand campaign is because this person who had your hard drive in their car with all of your stuff got into an accident, and I told them they could take the rest of the week. They're gonna be like, so what's the solution?
At best, you I mean, even if you say that, like, you have to have okay, and this is what we're doing about it.
And that's the piece that that has been actually a huge challenge that I don't think I was prepared for. But we're 3 years now into business, 4 years into business, and I've been able to really, like, sit with myself and just like, okay, that means some of our policies have to change. We went from having a 3-4 business day turnaround to 7 because it allows for quality. It allows for life to happen and all those things.
Yes. I love that. And, you had said something earlier when we were talking about the good, where you talked about how you started off with like a month to month. And for me, like, my tech brain just went to, like, oh, this is like beta. Like, you're trying it out to see what works. And I think sometimes when we come from corporate, because we're used to that perfect structure. So we're like, no, like, if I came from a place that had a lease, I'm going to get at least 2 without, like, doing the research and doing the work. And I think some of those micro decisions really make a difference. Because imagine if you just went in with a lease and then there was a couple of months where something went bad, you would think, oh, this is me, like, I can't do this, like, and then, maybe you've already put a lot more money in and you're looking now at bankruptcy. But I like that mindset of, let me try this and let me test, and then when I trust that this process runs, then I'll implement it. And I also like the idea of, like, being able to, like, change your approach and change your policies as things. And these are the realities that I think, probably entrepreneurs like you and people who have done this for many years will take for granted. But when you're in corporate, and, like, even when you're a people leader in corporate, there's just a whole structure that's going on around you that's propping things up that you don't think deeply about. I think deeply about some of these things. But I love to see entrepreneurs. I don't think of myself, or I don't think I'll ever be an entrepreneur. I think of myself more as, like, a creative and a corporate. The entrepreneurship side, I don't know. I just feel like I don't have that grit.
Grit. You know what? I like that word because that's it. It is a grit, but it's also, I call it bald-headed audacity because that's all this is. It's bald-headed audacity. Like, even the decision to do a month-to-month lease type situation, I learned very quickly that I had spent all my money. Like, that 1 year, I said, okay, how we went, because that location was about 1,500 square feet. The next location was about 910.
Right.
It was a downsize.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. I learned that I had enough money to pay myself, my team, and pay the studio. I did not factor in having enough money for marketing. So I literally left that space, went to the next space. The next space was $1,000 cheaper. That $1,000, though, I used every dime of that for marketing.
Yeah.
So remember I said we outgrew that space?
Yeah.
It's because I was using $1,000 to marketing where I didn't do that before.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the audacity is most people would say, you had realized you were stretched thin. Why didn't you start putting that money aside? Because I wouldn't then be here.
Yeah.
And so you have to have this audacity of like, well, we're already doing it. Yes, I'm now taking 1 foot step deeper into it.
Yeah.
And you just keep kind of
doubling down.
I don't even know if it's doubling down. I sometimes feel like I'm walking across a bridge, and as I'm standing on the last tile, I'm dropping the next tile to continue the bridge building. And God is the one that's putting the foundation underneath the tile. Because that is not me.
Absolutely. I love that because I feel the same way about my journey. So, in fact, I think even if I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur, I've done some bald-headed, audacious things, like quitting my tech job of multiple 100Ks to pursue, my novel and creative projects. And it's like, well, next step. And it may not be on the path of entrepreneurship, maybe because that's just not where I'm passionate about.
But you're hustling.
But I'm hustling. And I think that's the mindset that is needed to really pursue anything that is anything that's worthwhile. Because how am I just remembering that even when I came for my master's, I had 1/5 of the money. That's it.
But you got the master's, did you not?
Listen.
Do you know where the money came from? No.
God came through. God came through, period. Because I think about, and I've said this in a couple of episodes already, how in the past 5 to 7 years, a lot of our generation have left. And I think it happened in the early 90s when people who were in their 30s and 40s left with their families. And then there was a lull. And now it's happening again. And it's our generation. I see my friends who had maybe taken for granted that they were going to be living in Nigeria forever, were kind of comfortable, are relocating with their families. And, and now they're, with young children and maybe having to reskill and now thinking about their lives in a different way. And I think, it's this mindset of I'll just do something. I'll just put one foot in front of the other, and the bridge, God will build the foundation. God has to build the foundation. God, you can't leave me. You can't leave me out here. I cannot suffer. I cannot be under the bridge,
But that's the Nigerian in us.
Yeah.
That's honestly, and I grew up in America, so having that duality of, yes, I was born here in the States, raised back home till I was 9, but that duality of seeing just the difference in a mentality, it has a lot to do with how we're raised. We are raised to one first and foremost is God, then family, and then the confidence that is instilled in us as a family. I don't know if there's any other culture that is as confident as Nigerians.
Yes, sometimes baseless
confident. I didn't say that's it. We don't have merit, so it's just we're just but it plays so much into when people ask me, how did you know you could do it? I never had the thought that I couldn't.
Yeah.
The thought never even crossed my mind that there's a possibility that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I think I did an episode, because I have a YouTube channel, where I talked about how much it costs to do the studio. And from studio to studio, I think it's you acquire things over time. So you didn't really sit down and be like, oh, this is how much I've spent. And when I saw the dollar amount, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Who
Who approved this?
Who approved this? I'm looking at the accountant how you let me do this? She's like, you got a bigger space, but no, where my money at?
Yeah.
But it's that thing of our culture instills this in us. And I don't think it matters where we're raised or where we go. As long as your parents are Nigerian, it will forever seep through because there's this work ethic of strive for more.
Yeah.
Always be striving for more.
Yeah.
And sometimes some people ask oh, does that mean you guys are never satisfied or happy with what you have? No, striving for more doesn't mean I'm dissatisfied or not content.
Yeah.
It means that I recognize my full potential is not this.
Yeah.
So it's the same way when people are like, "What's next?" I say, "I beg, I've done enough.
Let me relax.
Let me. Did I not just get here? Just give me
Yeah.
a second."
That's kind of how I feel about like grad school, tech, blah 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 blah. Like big, I'm like, let me sleep first, let me get my brain to chill. But even still,
You can't
like,
stop yourself.
I can't stop myself from.
Because look at you now. You're doing writing a book, podcast.
Yeah.
Aren't you supposed to be resting?
I'm supposed to be resting. I did rest for like a month.
Exactly. And to you, that was a lot of time.
Yeah. I rested. I did rest. I loved it. I was like, wow, this is good. This feels good. And then what's next? Yeah, there's, as you were speaking, I remember how I went to a Christian school, both, all throughout before I went to university. And we used to say, there is nothing I cannot learn, master, and excel in every day. There's nothing I cannot learn, master. Like when you say that to yourself, it goes somewhere and it's like, okay, this might not be my comfort zone, but I can learn, I can master, and I can excel if I put in the effort. So I just love that. I mean, I'm so happy that that's like my foundation and like what I fall back on in times when I'm not so sure of myself or where things are not looking like, they need to.
But do you feel like, for you at least, like, do you think it's because your story is different than mine,
Yeah.
Like you didn't grow up in the States your whole life.
Yes.
And so how do you feel like being a Nigerian coming to the US, how that has impacted how you go about your life as far as like your hustle, your mentality?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I think, first of all, I have a lot of Nigerian pride that came like late onset Nigerian pride. So I was very sheltered. I grew up in Ibadan. I was a church kid, pastor's kid, and we just had a cluster, right? And I grew up in that cluster. Watched a lot more like foreign American TV than even Nigerian TV. And it was when I went to university in Nigeria that I, first of all, like became aware of like this whole world of Nigerian people around me who had very different backgrounds, and which is great, which is what university is supposed to be, right? And then I started to listen to people who would come on campus, like older people like Fela Durotoye then, and some other like motivational speakers and leaders who came and started talking about Nigeria and like who we are as a people. And I started to get like really proud of who I was. And it was in that space that I came of age. So when I graduated and then I worked for a little bit and decided I wanted to come for grad school, it was like this, like I'm coming to take over the world. I didn't even plan to stay in the US. Like I didn't plan to. I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to Singapore. Maybe I'll go to Dubai. I was like, the world is my oyster. You know what I mean? Like, but the most interesting thing that came up was, tech in the US. And so I stayed. And I, for a long time called myself a reluctant immigrant. I don't do that. I don't do that anymore.
Welcome over.
Thank you. But it was just that sense of I'm going somewhere to make a difference. So I'm someone going somewhere to happen, and that just pushed me through all the challenges, like coming here with 1/5 of the money that I needed, and like just being like, God, you cannot disgrace me. I cannot go back home.
Now he cannot disgrace you.
Like, like
he's
God,
like, I beg, please,
yeah. And
please.
then
now.
even like getting on my job and my first job and feeling like, oh, I'm in this big tech company that like is a household name. Can I do the job? And
you don't want to fail and be disgracing your family.
Yes,
but that's a cultural thing, you
yes.
know. Because there are times that like there's things I'll see on the news, or even when I worked in corporate, and I'll just be like, who raised you?
Yeah.
Like, you don't think your family is not
Your entire
clan. They're not going to be embarrassed by this behavior.
Your entire clan, because it's not even at this point. Like,
it's not just your parents.
It's not just your immediate family.
Because even at this point, I think if I did anything crazy, like, it's so funny, I record for YouTube, and my mom at first, when I said I was going on YouTube, I beg, don't do anything for attention.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're as a culture,
yeah.
the community is responsible for us. And like, I think that ties into the drive and the hustle. And I think, honestly, we're meant to be entrepreneurs. And it's not saying it has to be full time. And I think a lot of people, when I say entrepreneurship, people are like, oh, I'm not quitting my job. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to quit your job at all.
Yeah.
If you love what you do. But I think that entrepreneur spirit of like, one, because we operate from a place of excellence.
Yeah.
A place of pride. And a place of accountability. Those things tie heavily into what it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur.
It does. On that note, my final sort of question is, and I think I've asked a few of the folks who have come on about like, what are your hopes for the future of the Nigerian diaspora? And it's probably like a really heavy question.
Oh my God.
Well, now, Ona, we're bringing the Nigerian diaspora and we're putting it on your lap.
The heaviness that my body just felt. It was like, boom.
You are responsible for our future. But no, I mean, you know, like...
Can we condense it to entrepreneurship for Nigeria?
For entrepreneurship. I mean, maybe even just for yourself, right? Just think about everything that we've talked about. Like, what do you hope for the future to look like for entrepreneurs like you?
Finding ease. This studio, everything I've done, I've never taken out a loan.
Wow.
I remember it wasn't until maybe a year ago I finally got a business credit card because I'm adverse to debt.
Oh, so you were doing all this on your personal credit card?
No, I'm saying credit card. I've been using debit card, cash.
Oh, wow.
So I'm adverse to debt.
So you're telling us you're liquid. You got that cash flow.
Look, my thing that it gives me sleep and rest is that if tomorrow if at any points I sell everything and I'm rich again.
I love that.
Because I don't owe anybody any money.
Yeah, I love that.
You see this place? I sell everything. Just one light. Do you know how much it costs?
I know, right? You gotta buy one massive designer bag.
So for the longest, I've operated from a space of I have to figure out how to do this on my own. And that means working a lot. And so for the future, I want more. I feel like Nigerian women are so powerful.
Yeah.
And the strength that comes with that also can turn into our anchor around our necks. Because I remember a friend of mine was like, apply for grants. I was like, I beg, in the hours it's taking me to apply for grants, I can be getting working with the clients. That's $10,000 right there. You spent 12 years, 50 grants. Where is your money? You know, I'm very like, let's strategize and things of that nature. And so for the future, I really want to see where there's more collectivism coming together. Yeah. Because when I think of just like what I do, I know that there's definitely somebody within our community who does amazing at that side. Yeah. Like podcasting is my thing. I had to learn video. Right. Video was not something I knew. Podcasting had always been audio based. Yeah. So when it started becoming video, I was like, hey, Jesus, I have to learn. Yeah. And I think sometimes, especially in our culture, one, we can be so strong. Yeah. That doing things with others in a partnership capacity can be very tough. Yeah. And I wish that's a goal I want for the future of where there's more collaboration. Yeah. You know, if you do video, I do podcasts, you do this, you do that. We come together and it doesn't then feel like, oh, this person's trying to control, this person's that. Yeah. And I know me, I have a strong personality. Yeah. I don't know if partnership is for me. I like that there's people who work here. This is what you're responsible for and you do your job. But I think sometimes in being raised with so much strength, it doesn't leave a lot of room for vulnerability and ease. And even for me, like, I think even yesterday I was saying, there's going to come a time I can't be in this studio. I'm getting older, lifting lights, carrying bags, it's going to come a time. So what does that look like? Is it training your replacement? Yeah. Is it looking at how to partner with others? Yeah. And so that's something I really want as a culture, because I don't think there's anybody who can understand the mindset that we have to achieve these goals. Yeah. And I think it has to be another Nigerian. And so my goals for the future of entrepreneurship for Nigerians is that we start coming together more, and we start tapping into resources. Yeah. You know, like I remember when I got laid off, my mother told me, "Oh, you don't apply for unemployment, so because that's government assistance."
I mean, you don't.
I said government assistance. She said, you don't do that. So I didn't do it.
That. No, but you don't now. Do you?
I didn't do it because
I mean, there has to be like a. Well, you know what? I feel like this is a very privileged.
But exactly. Right now. But whereas I remember a friend of mine was like, "Why wouldn't you?" So remember I said I've been laid off twice. So the second time I applied, I said,
You did? Was it good? Was it good money?
It was around COVID too. So the money was
good.
I said,
You were like, I see why people just
Yeah.
like stay in this space.
This is nice. They're like, well, you've already paid into it, but like, think about
your mom finding this out, right?
Yeah, I told her. So I said, excuse me, I beg. I'm trying to run a business. They're going to give me how much money, and I can. No.
Yeah.
But just think about that mentality, because we are such prideful people.
Girl.
Our taxes and the money we paid when we're walking the job is what pays into unemployment.
Yeah.
But as a Nigerian, I was like, you're right, because who am I? I'm not taking assistance. And so it's just, but it's those things. And so I want us to be less. That's my second. Less prideful. I think life could be softer for us.
Yeah.
And we don't have to get everything by force and by fire.
Yeah, I love that. I love the two things. So one, tap into community. Two, tap into resources and be less prideful. And be more community based. I think about this a lot, and I look at like my cousin who has an amazing podcast. It's a partnership, right? And I think of like my very first boss when I came out of uni and I worked for Red Media. It was a partnership. There's a beauty in like knowing that, okay, this person, this is their strength. This person, this is their, their strength, and it's complementary, and just we're gonna like work together. And of course there'll be clashes. But yeah, like people like you and me, like I'm just used to telling people this is what I want to do, and everybody do what I say, and no, you have to like you have to change to be able to work together and to partner together. And I think there's a lot of success that we'll see if we go together versus when we try to do it alone. And then the second one I think is even harder. Tapping into resources versus trying to create and generate everything.
Because we will use our last blood, sweat, and tears. Then when you get to the finish line, you're so tired. That you don't even enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like I can honestly say, like last year, I was like, I remember crying in this studio. I said, I'm making all this money, but I'm always here. Yeah. I never have time to spend any of it. I was lamenting in here.
Yeah.
Just lamenting, because it's just like, this is all I do. Yeah. And I remember in my prayer time, God is like, who told you to do all of this? I beg, go sit down.
Yeah.
So this year I said, hire the people. I beg, come and work.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm so excited to see like, what the future looks like for you. In fact, it was another Nigerian person who like connected us and was like, no, Ona will do a great job. And, I'm so glad that we met, and I wish you the best.
Even though I bossed you around, girl.
You bossed me around, but I love it. I love it because I'm like, somebody tell me what to do. I don't want to be in control all the time. Thank you, Jesus. Do I need to sit here? Okay, cool. Do I need to smile with my teeth? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. So no hard feelings whatsoever. On that note, how can people find and connect with Adode?
So you can find us at Adode Media, which is ADODE media.com, as well as on social media. My personal page is Ona Oghogho. And, if you're looking to create a podcast or looking for a studio to bring your content to life, because we do work with people outside of podcasting. So whether that's social media marketing, brand campaigns, commercials for your brand, we're here and happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you for coming.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's been great. And yes, you can find this podcast, Zero Generation. You can find all our episodes on all your podcast listening platforms. You can also find the videos uploaded on YouTube at Dami Onwa, which is my personal YouTube page. And you can connect with me on social media at Dami Onwa. And you can go from my social media. There are links to my website where you can sign up for my newsletter. I write a monthly newsletter to a group of people about these things that I think about all the time: immigration, being away from home, building a life away from home, being a dreamer who left home. And so you can connect with me in that way. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time. Bye.